friends. This is Wheezy from the What is True podcast. Hope everyone is doing rather exquisite. This is a small clip, and if you fancy listening to the entire episode, please visit the link tree below. This is due to the heavy censorship on this particular platform, so I hope you guys understand and hope to catch you on these other platforms. Much love to all of y'all, wherever you may be listening from, and if you are here live, special hugs and kisses to y'all. And if you listen throughout the week, shout outs to y'all as well. All right, Mr. Brisson will be here in any minute. He did text me, unlike the last time we did an Epstein show. Mr. Brisson is a good buddy of mine. One of the very few that I actually trust. We had several great conversations this week. And originally, this episode was going to be on the Epstein and Trump connections. And the more we talked about it, we said, you know what? Let's focus on Trump. We're definitely going to go down deep through the Epstein and Donald Trump connections, but we're seeing a lot of people, and we're not too happy with a lot of the people in this alternative space, in this quote-unquote independent media that run cover for the MAGA movement. We already know, and I hope, if you've been following me for a while, we already know the QAnon bullshit was complete propaganda, was complete nonsense. And if you don't know, maybe you're just tuning in, you are still trusting the plan. This is in no way, shape, form trying to poo-poo on you. We're trying to wake people up. And the QAnon nonsense was complete garbage. Propped up by Steve Bannon through Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica is a data mining company that ran profiles on who was likely to vote for Donald Trump. And their profile came up with largely Christian evangelicals, patriots types. And that's why most of the QAnoners fit that description. That's who the propaganda was aimed at. And so Mike Benz, we did a show on Joe Rogan, the new Laurel Canyon 2.0. And he had Mike Benz on, and they were talking about how the Biden administration ran through these propaganda outlets and data mining companies, which is absolutely true. What he failed to mention was Steve Bannon and Cambridge Analytica. Essentially, the Trump campaign was doing the same exact thing. But Mr. Mike Benz, of course, he didn't mention it. He didn't bring it up. And so since he didn't bring it up, we're going to be talking about that today. So if you are still on the Trump train, maybe you are on the fence, this is going to be a great show for you. And if you haven't figured it out by now, I am not a lefty or a vote blue, no matter who. I'm a former one of those, full disclosure, former. But today, my stance is fuck the left, fuck the right. That is my political stance. And as I say that, I am joined by my man, the myth, the legend, directly from the kill room, Mr. John Brisson. What's up, John?
Doing well, Wheezy. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing good, man. As we waited your arrival, I try to preface my audience that if you are on the Trump fence, if you are still trusting the plan, Steve Bannon's Cambridge Analytica plan, this may be a hard episode to digest. And I also let them know that you and I spoke through the week, and we thought this was a very necessary episode. We were originally going to be doing the Trump Epstein connections and just focus on that. But we decided, you know what? Let's make this a Donald Trump focused episode.
Uh-huh.
And there is nothing good about this guy. Uh-huh. And unfortunately, there are people in our space that know this, but they also realize that a lot of their followers are Trumpers And so they tiptoe around the subject. They might throw a couple little glancing blows here and there, but they don't go all in because they don't want to lose their subscribers. Now, every time I've done these type of shows, I do lose subscribers, but I don't care. It's not about the subscribers. It's about getting the message out and the truth out. So without further ado, Mr. John, there may be a few people that are new listeners and maybe not be fully aware of your work. If you can give us a little taste on that, how long you've been doing this, and what is your expertise, or your, you know, that way, if there's any new people listening, like, well, what does he know? You know, what's your research experience in the whole Donald Trump Epstein stuff?
Yeah, my name is John Brisson. I run the We Read the Documents YouTube channel. And I've been researching for greater than 15 years at this point. And I was also, my father was a conspiracy theorist. So I was raised listening to Coast AM and Bill Cooper. So, interestingly enough, I was a neoconservative, even though my dad was a conspiracy theorist, up until I heard Alex Jones on Coast AM one night in December 2008. And heard about 9/11 being an inside job, which my father believed 9/11 was an inside job before he passed away in 2004. So I've been researching for a while. I myself voted for Trump in 2016. I myself used to support Donald Trump. And I talked about in the past, I myself used to be a white nationalist as well too. I have since repented from all those things. And I'd discovered through Josh Reeves's documentary, The Secret Right Volume 1 and The Secret Right Volume 2, about the Council for National Policy, which Donald Trump is their hand-picked president. They're kind of like the right wing of the CFR. I look at the world order as two wings, one bird, right? And the wings flap in tandem to keep the bird afloat, right? So, I it once had fell for the Trump lie, but once I learned about the CMP and learned how many CMP members were in Trump's cabinet, and the true kind of like machinations of the Council for National Policy, I had realized that Trump was not our guy. I remember the night that Trump did the missile strike on Syria, and me being anti-war, I went outside and ripped off the bumper sticker of Trump on my car. I was so fed up and done with him. And so, it still took me a little while to realize that Trump wasn't our guy. It was, I think probably about 2017, 18-ish was when and then of course the pandemic, right? Well, obviously, by then I'd already been exposing Trump. I'd actually written, it's funny, I might bring it up on my Substack one day, kind of thing disproving Trump's connections to Jeffrey Epstein. Back in like 2015, 2016, is like this little document that I put together. It's completely false. It's completely false. But it just shows you how much I was under the delusion that Trump was, a good man. Me as a Christian, I actually believe that Donald Trump is the man of lawlessness. I believe that he is very much likely the Antichrist. This to show you how far I think that Trump's depravity knows no bounds. We'll see. I'm not saying for sure, but it sure looks like it to me through my research of him over the many years and everything that he's been involved with. And we can talk about his connections to Russia, his connections to Israel, his connections to the Vatican, of course, being a Jesuit trained from Fordham University. And him being bailed out by Wilbur Ross, who was, put into his cabinet during his first term, when Wilbur Ross was a Rothschild banker when his casinos were going under. Trump's definitely not our guy. He never was, and he never will be. He is bought and paid for by his elitist masters, and he's a willing participant in it as well too. And if anybody's still under the Trump delusion now, thinking he's our guy, that's something you and I have discussed, Wheezy. He's still the vax daddy. He's still pushing the vaccine. Operation Stargate is pushing AI tailor-made mRNA vaccinations. And so, anybody who still has faith in Trump and still hashtag trust the plan should realize that they're double minded if they believe that they are some sort of quote unquote truth or a conspiracy theorist or Christian. Any of those titles, it's wrong. It's wrong to think that Trump at all has anything to do with your best interest at heart. Does it make it clear? Is that what you wanted, or?
Yeah, no, that's great. Because as I was stating before you came on, I wanted to let people know this isn't a shot. I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. We're just trying to wake people up because a lot of people are still under the spell of
Yeah.
what the MAGA movement is.
And I once was. I admit it. I once was
Yeah.
myself. So I'm not talking down to anybody. If I seem to be assertive, it is only because I realize the snake that Donald John Trump is. That's all. And I would say
Yeah,
you would say the same thing, Weezy. You never liked him like me, but you know that he's a snake.
Yeah,
So.
and last time I did a Epstein episode, I did bring up the fact that I fell for the Obama grift. So it's similar. It's not like me trying to feel like grandiose and better than everyone else. I fell for Obama in 08. I believed in the hope and change, and the parallels with Obama and Trump are right there. In 08, when Obama became president, you heard so many Republicans that had voted Republicans all their lives. But that time in 08, they said, you know what? I'm going to vote Democrat because I want hope and change. And this time around, with the Trump presidency and with the fake assassination attempt, what did you hear? You heard a lot of people that voted Democrats all their lives. They were tired of the Biden administration not doing anything. I'm going to give the Republican ticket a chance. They got RFK Jr. for crying out loud. He's going to turn everything upside down. And it's a freaking psyop, man. And this is what we hope to do with this episode. This episode is going to be impactful. And if you really enjoy it, I want you to share it with all your friends, all the people that are still on that fence, because this is an episode that needs to happen, man. A lot of, like I already stated, man, I'm sick and tired of it, man. John, you and I spoke earlier in the week, and you heard my passion, dude.
I did,
it's not
yes.
like the same way I'm speaking right now is how I was speaking to you early in the week. I'm dead serious about this. I'm freaking tired of it, of all these people that I know mean well. So if you're a Trump supporter, if you're someone that's on the fence still, I know you mean well. I know it. I'm not saying you don't. What I'm saying is what you have fallen for is complete nonsense. And I don't know where you want to start with this. Well, I did before 2016 when Trump put his hat in the ring. Maybe we can start there. Okay. Or wherever you want to start, man. I suppose we can go all over the place because, if we went back into the 80s, that we're talking about the Epstein connection.
We talk about Resorts Unlimited. We talk about the elephants and donkeys. Kathleen, I forgot her last name, thing that was in LaRouche, where it literally said that both Biden and Trump were Russian agents. But we're just going to brush that off to the side, right? Because everybody in the truth movement loves Vladimir Putin and Russia so much. When right now, Wheezy, you can go look it up yourself. They also invented their own AI mRNA vaccine, and they're going to be giving to the public because Vladimir Putin's going around saying, I cure cancer.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's the same thing. So when I had James Corbett on a couple of weeks ago, that's what we were talking about. There was a meme going around where they showed Klaus Schwab, and in that meme it said brain chips, biometric IDs, vaccines. No, never. A MAGA guy say never because Klaus Schwab is doing it. But then right below it, you see Elon Musk and Donald Trump advocating for exactly the same thing. And now this time the MAGA guy is saying, yeah, all right, woohoo. And it's the same agenda being pushed. Just a couple little superficial differences. Like this whole USAID. Oh yeah, they're really cracking down. Doge is really doing something. And it's all nonsense, man. Case in point, the Epstein files. The Epstein files were promised by Attorney General Pam Bondi,
Who might be
Attorney
a
General.
Scientologist.
Not only that, I made a little joke on Twitter where Pam Bondi, if you don't know anything about her, you would think she's a 30-something-year-old smoking hot chick. That should be the first red flag of the deceptions, because she's actually a 60-year-old chick who received a $25,000 donation from, for her campaign from Trump, to kind of hide the whole Trump University. Maybe we could hit the Trump University scandal in full detail today, because that's something that doesn't really get talked about anymore. Because that was one of my first hints before Trump ever took office. I was like, how in the hell someone that ran a certified Ponzi scheme as Trump University, how can this guy become president of the United States? And here we are, second term.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to shout out to Twisted K in the chat. He had mentioned Resorts International started by Meyer Lansky and later bought by Trump, which is very true through the behest of Roy Cohn. If I said Resorts Unlimited earlier, I did not mean to. I meant to say Resorts International. So we're talking about mob. We're talking about mob ties directly with Trump, even from then, right? And so it's you're right. I mean, Trump's always been a con artist. He's always been a con man. And he doesn't care where he gets his money from. Like I said, Rothschild, Wilbur Ross, Rothschild banker, bailing him out, right? The Rothschilds literally bailing out Trump's failing casinos in the early 90s, right? Trump purchasing Adnan Khashoggi's yacht, right? The Saudi arms dealer who sold it to the Sultan of Brunei, who later Trump had purchased it from, right? So, there are tons and tons and tons of shady connections with Trump. And these are the ones that we just know. Imagine how many of them, Wheezy, that we don't know. Okay. So if you take the ones that we just know that we can prove, okay, it's bad enough. It's more than bad enough. But imagine the more that are out there that we haven't even found yet, or the ones that are out there that we'll never even know about. Like that's the thing is you're not finding less on Trump, or you're not finding nothing at all on Trump. The more you look, the more you find. That right there should alert people, but they just don't care. It goes out one ear and out the other, So it's and I get it. I was that way. I had cognitive dissonance for Trump for a few years. I remember I'd stopped listening to Alex Jones years before. And I started listening to him again, thinking that Trump had flipped him. And I was even listening to Rush Limbaugh thinking Trump had flipped him. It's so silly. But I was being silly. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to offend anybody here. But, like I myself fell under the Trump delusion. And it's a delusion. And it's a very strong delusion. I'd actually argue it's stronger than the Obama delusion. There were people that worshiped Obama, but not to the level of people worshiping Trump, not to the level that people are defending Trump, not to the level that people just don't want to criticize Trump at all. And the moment they hear criticizing, they automatically have to defend him, or they automatically have to trash the left. They have to trash Obama and Biden. You can't just trash Trump, So America is extremely polarizing. It's extremely polarizing. And you can't, bring up one without the other. Now I believe that Biden, through Anduril Industries and Palmer Luckey and the virtual border wall continuing under Biden, Operation Tiberius Kirk and the pandemic continuing under Biden, his administration laid up the ball for Trump to dunk it in, right? Obviously, that's obvious for anybody who's paying attention. All right, it was a layup. Trump's administration is now dunking it in fully. Okay, it's obvious. All right, that doesn't excuse the crimes of Biden and his administration. Okay. However, most people, when you start talking about Trump, they immediately go, well, what about Biden? Well, what about the Clintons? Well, what about Obama? Well, what about this? And what about that? But you can't focus on Trump. I've spent majority of We Read the Documents exposing Trump in the CMP. And people ask me, well, John, why don't you cover Obama and Clinton and the CFR just as much as everybody else does? And I'm like, well, because everybody else is doing it. You're already hearing that from everybody else. You're not hearing the Trump stuff. You're not hearing about the Council for National Policy or their version of the Bilderberg, which is Lost Raquel, that we even know less about. That's why I cover these things, because nobody, okay, very few people are talking about it, Wheezy.
No one
That's
wants to
why.
talk about it. And that's the thing. There's people that know about this shit, but they're timid. They know it. They'll lose it. They'll lose clicks and views for talking about it, and that's what upsets me. You know, real quick on the whole Epstein. When you bring up Bill Clinton and Epstein, everyone knows about it.
Of
Who
course.
even and who on the left is even going to defend it? They even the left knows about Bill Clinton and Epstein. But you bring up Trump and Epstein. Oh no,
Or
don't
RFK
go there.
Jr. and Epstein.
Don't go.
Don't go
Yeah.
there either.
And so yeah, that's why it's important to bring all these things up, because no one's doing it. And so that's the whole point of today's show. And Brisson, Mr. John Brisson, he's on Substack. And if you want to support his work, he is a great researcher. And I said it before you came on, man. You are one of the very few that I actually trust, man. Um, and I think this week you and I got a little bit closer,
Yes,
actually.
we did. We did.
Yeah. I had already started to trust you before this week, but with our
I trust you too, brother.
conversations, yeah, man. And i- even in our space, you know, it gets hard to know whose heart is actually in it for the right reasons. There's people that have a mix of good reasons and clicks and views reasons. And unfortunately, you know, when you branch out even to the bigger, a lot of people still hold some of these people like a Tucker Carlson,
Yep.
an Ian Carroll
Yep.
as truth sayers. I had someone leave me a comment like, "Oh, you're wrong about Ian Carroll. You don't know what you're talking about." And this is all part of the new Operation Mockingbird, this quote unquote independent media space. And so this is why I want to go hard on it today, man. And I want to let you take it away, John. I don't know where you want to start. And you know, I'll interject, I suppose, when I've got a couple little things that I want to touch on. But man, your work is exquisite. And if you enjoy what you hear today, I definitely encourage you to visit my man John, hit up his Substack, and support my man. I mean, he does tremendous work. Just go to his Substack, look at all the articles he has on there, and he sources what he writes about. He puts the articles, like if he's talking about, okay, I got this information from here, boom, there's the article. Go double check it yourself. This is an absolute amazing researcher, Mr. John Brisson. So if you appreciate today's work and today's show my man some love and hit him up. All
And
right,
I will
go ahead,
say,
John.
one last thing. Just because something comes from a leftist publication, quote unquote, doesn't mean it's not true. Just as something comes from a rightist publication doesn't mean it's false. Okay. So, for people on the left. All right. So you should be able to source what people are saying. And if you back up, if you compare what people are saying with previous things that in the past and they seem to be true, then it doesn't matter if it comes from a leftist or a rightist paper. Okay, it means it's true. There is some truth in the Mockingbird media. If there wasn't, you wouldn't believe it. Okay. That doesn't mean it's all right either. I'm not saying that at all. Just like the alternative media is the same thing. There's a lot of truth in alternative media as well, too. There's a lot of poison in it as well. So I mean, it's the same. It goes both ways. And a lot of people don't realize that. Most of the things that the alternative media sources is from the mainstream media. Unless you're doing gumshoe journalism like I did with the finders and actually calling people up and stuff like that and getting down to the stories and interviewing people. So most people on alternative media is not doing that. So a lot of our research that we get is from the mainstream media. So again, if that's true, just because I source something from the Huffington Post doesn't necessarily in and of itself make it wrong. Okay. Just like if I source something from Forbes, which Forbes was Council for National Policy, remember Steve Forbes, the billionaire, okay, doesn't necessarily make it wrong either, or even the Mooney Washington Times, okay. So again, a lot of our research into the Franklin scandal comes from Paul Rodriguez out of the Washington Times, okay. And he was later, demoted from the paper and left, okay, because of that research. All right. So again, don't get triggered automatically if you go on my Substack and you see some left-leaning newspapers as sources. It doesn't mean what they say is always wrong. Okay. just like the opposite with the Washington Times, the Unification Church being literally owned by the Moonies. Okay. As well as the Epoch Times being run by the Chinese cult of Falun Gong. Okay. So again, like if you can't trust everything on the right and disregard everything on the left, quote unquote media, like you got to find some
You have
balance
to,
there.
and part of doing great research is consuming all the information that you can, and then trying to evaluate what makes the most sense. Real quick, I'm not going to get too much into it, but that's what I've been doing with the Lincoln assassination research that I've been doing. I read mainline official narratives,
Mhm.
and I read more conspiracy leaning, and then I gather all that information and try to form a more complete picture of what I believe makes more sense. And,
Yeah.
and so, just because something comes from the left or something comes from the right, you shouldn't automatically discard it. Read it. And if it doesn't make sense after you read it, then yeah, discard it. But if you can, okay, this guy said this, boom, boom, I'm going to follow up on this lead. And then it checks out. And then other stuff starts checking out. Dang, now you got something. So it shouldn't matter. Always double check your work, no matter what kind of research you're doing.
Yes.
And so,
And
yeah.
everybody's gonna have a certain amount of cognitive biases in their work, ourselves included. Okay. So I do want to make that known. So I guess we could start a little bit with Trump of himself. Now, he allegedly met Jeffrey Epstein in 1987. Now, let's go back for a minute. Trump, when he was interviewed in October 28th, 2002, a New York Magazine article, Jeffrey Epstein, International Money Man of Mystery. Epstein, said, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy." So from there, you can argue it was roughly about 1987. We really don't know what was a catalyst from them meeting per se around that time, but we do know that they were later photographs together on Robert Maxwell's yacht, and that would be in 1989. So here's a brief article that you might find very interesting. Your audience might find very interesting, Wheezy, from at that time. It was the New York Daily News. Everybody at the board of aboard British media mogul Robert Maxwell's yacht Wednesday night had to doff their shoes before boarding the plush carpeted Lady Ghislaine. Maxwell assisted in his guests cooperate, including Donald Trump minus Ivana, who has a bigger yacht and was happy to compare notes with Maxwell. There was John Tower, the ex-Navy secretary, John Lehman, now with Payne Weber, who's a lawyer, Tom Boleyn, literary agent, Mort Janklow, UN envoy, Thomas Pickering, Peter Calcolo. And then so we know that was, at least the first time that you have Ghislaine Maxwell and Robert Maxwell together with Donald Trump. Okay. At least that we know of. All right. And then from there, and also supposedly, if I remember, now I don't want to say who was on that lot because that who was at that on that yacht. I may be mistaken for on that point that I was going to raise. But we know that later, when the first outings that we have publicly of them being together is the infamous Mar-a-Lago Party for Two in 1992. All right. So you have the infamous video of where there's some cheerleaders over at Mar-a-Lago and Jeffrey Epstein's there and Trump's like arms around them. The famous videos and stills that we have of them together is from that Mar-a-Lago event. Okay. So it's right here. It was supposed to be an exclusive party at Mar-a-Lago, Donald John Trump's members only club in Palm Beach, Florida. But only then the 24 or so women flowed in to provide entertainment. The only guests were Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. The year was 1992, and the event was a calendar girl competition that George Horaney, a Florida-based businessman who ran American Dream Enterprises, organized at Trump's request. I arranged to have some contestants fly in. Horaney recalled in an interview at the very first party. Horaney asked Trump, "Who's coming tonight? I have 28 girls coming." Trump stated it was just him and Epstein. Horaney had just partnered with Trump to host events in his casino, said he was surprised all the girls were for just them. Horaney said, "Donald, this is supposed to be a party with VIPs. You're telling me it's just you and Epstein." Trump dismissed Horaney's warning about his friend Epstein's conduct. Horaney said, "Look, Donald, I know Jeff really well, and I can't have him going after younger girls." Horaney continued, "Look, I'm putting my name on this. I won't put my name on it and have a scandal." Horaney said that he pretty much had to ban Jeff from his events. Trump didn't care about that. Shortly before the 2016 presidential election, Harani accused Trump of inappropriate behavior towards Harani's girlfriend and business partner, Jill Harf, during their business dealings. Okay. So, and you have the footage right there of the event of them being all buddy buddy with each other. Wheezy.
Yeah, and if you look in the background, who's right there in the back? That's
Ghislaine.
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Correct. Yes.
A lot of people talk about this clip, but I've heard very few people realize that Ghislaine Maxwell is right there hanging out with them too. So, yeah, go on. I'm sorry.
No, which is very common. They're all together around that time, and so there's numerous allegations that I could go through, or the times that Donald Trump flew on Jeffrey Epstein's Gulfstream 2, but most people know about those to a degree.
I don't think a lot of people know, John. When you mention Trump and Epstein, or Trump flying on Epstein's plane, a lot of people don't know it. A lot of Trump supporters don't know it. And so what I've said is you have to be super close to someone, I have to imagine, to fly on their plane. Trump has his own plane. What business is he doing flying on Epstein's plane when he owns his own plane? Super weird. Another thing that I've mentioned.
Well, there was some time period that he did not own his own plane. That being said, but there were times where he was flying with Epstein, where he did have his own plane. And I actually have something to show you, where I had to get the Maximum Golf article. Let me see if I can go grab it real quick. I had to put a flag on eBay and wait for a long time. Where in that article, Epstein flew on Trump's plane.
Yeah.
So you go ahead and talk. Let me grab it.
Yeah. So these are little things that I think the average Trump supporter doesn't even realize. And so I want to bring these things up. And we're also going to cover one of the most famous myths that you will hear a lot of Trump supporters say when you bring up the Trump Epstein connections. You'll hear them say, well, Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. I'm so sick and tired of it. Early this week, I listened to a channel on YouTube, 4 million views on Epstein, just to kind of sharpen up my recollection on the facts and details about it. It was overall a decent video. But then they talked about the Trump kicking out Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, and they were repeating it as if it were gospel. And this video had 4 million views. And so that is really the, at some point we're going to tackle that and destroy it, debunk it, because a lot of these things people need to understand. I've also mentioned in the past how a few months ago after the hurricane, there you go, I went over to the East Coast in to escape the Hurricane Milton. And before we came back to the west coast of Florida, I decided to go to Mar-a-Lago and not only go through Mar-a-Lago, but drive by Epstein's old mansion. And lo and behold, it was a 20-minute walk from Epstein's place to Mar-a-Lago. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy smokes. This friendship that he openly bragged about. There you go. What are you showing on the screen right now?
This is the Maximum Golf article. It did not exist digitally that I know of before I found it. We had statements of Michael Corcoran, the author, who said that when Epstein traveled on Trump's plane, he was with Ghislaine and a girl made up with makeup to look older than she actually appeared. Okay, that was his quote. All right, so he doesn't say that in the article about the girl being made up to look older than she appears, but he talks about. So I'm going to read this. Let's see here. Cartmate first observed Melania Noss. Okay, so this is before Trump had got married to her, which they met through Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, all right. Trump's current squeeze was she graciously introduced herself upon boarding Trump's plane the previous evening at LaGuardia Airport's Marine Terminal, a part of the New York City airport that's used by private aircraft as a starting point of this odyssey. With her drop-dead figure and feline looks, Noss is a major hotties. Facts are obvious that Trump's gold letters that spell out Trump on the side of the black 727 airliner. No man dating this woman should give a blank what anyone thinks about her, but Trump does. He gives a blank about a lot of things that Cartman finds peculiar in a man of his eminence. Punctuality, for instance, wearing his trademark dark blue bespoke suit and white shirt, Trump paces the aisle of his plane, tugging at his tie like an accountant at 11:30 p.m. on April 15th. Never be late for someone else's plane, Trump says, his facial expression showing a mixture of annoyance and bemusement. The fitting party is stuck in Friday rush hour traffic. Come on, Jeffrey. Where are you? Trump says. He's talking about Jeffrey Epstein, another wealthy and well-known man who's traveling with Ghislaine Maxwell, the daughter of the late media bearer Robert Maxwell. The couple finally arrives, Epstein wearing an orange sweatshirt and jeans, and Maxwell sporting sunglasses and fashionably tight pants. Trump brightens and gently chides them for giving their tardiness. Also on the plane are Trump's sister Elizabeth and her husband Jim Grau, and another unidentified woman. Apparently eager to speak with Trump, Grau raises abruptly from his seat and turns to Trump, pressing a hand against the white leather covered cabin ceiling for balance and rushing impulsively to whatever he wants to say. Get your hand off the ceiling, you'll stain the lever, snaps Trump before wheeling around it and ambling towards the front of the plane. Mr. Trump's traveling party is heading for the exclusive Mar-a-Lago Club, one of Trump's many property holdings in a sprawling fortress that was once the private reserve of Marjorie Merriweather Post, whose family made a fortune selling breakfast cereal. All right, so I just wanted to read that part because that interview was previously not known to be, at least in full, in the internet until I happened to get a copy off of eBay and put it on the internet. And this article was from August 2000.
That's awesome. Yeah, because that's one thing you won't hear a lot of Trumpers really talk about is how did the Trump and Melania relationship come to fruition? And it's very mysterious. And this is why it's mysterious. It's not a traditional quote unquote love story. When you look at Melania's connections to Jean-Luc Brunel, and I don't know if that's where you were going next or if you wanted to focus somewhere else.
No, you can go ahead and discuss that real quick if you want to. I was going to talk about her connections to the modeling agency specifically, and the modern life specifically. But if you want to talk about that, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I mean, and it's connected to Jean-Luc Brunel, and maybe we can, you can tell us a little bit of Jean-Luc Brunel, because this is another infamous pedophile another one who allegedly died as well. But yeah, man, go ahead.
He was also really good friends with, Trump as well too. So he'd founded the MC2 model management agency that was directly funded by Jeffrey Epstein. And there were, various, as you had mentioned, allegations against Brunel. Mainly. Though there are trafficking allegations, some of them being brought forth by Virginia Roberts Free. Brunel also, there were rape accusations brought against him as well too. And later, like you'd mentioned, he was later arrested, I think in Paris, France, I think at the Charles de Gaulle airport, right? And then later, quote unquote, committed suicide, right?
Yeah.
So, Brunel and Epstein and Trump were tight with each other.
Yeah. But this is insane. Think about it. Here Trump is in the mix with some of the most prolific pedophiles of all time. And then, I mean, I'm sure at some point we'll even bring up the whole Diddy connection. I mean, but a Trumper will say, well, he's just playing 69-dimensional chess. He's getting close to his enemies. This is the kind of mental idiotic gymnastics you have to play to excuse these connections with some of the most horrible, evil wretches in the world.
Yes, and just like I had discovered that Marla Maples was also very close to both RFK Jr. and Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell as well too, which would be Trump's second wife. So I mean, and then you have now I know it's been contested. Uh, um, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on her name. The Epstein.
Katie Johnson?
No, Kay Johnson's contested, but that's not who I'm thinking about. The Epstein victim that was an artist.
Oh, shoot.
I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on her name.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
trying to. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, she had a sister too, a younger sister.
I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on her
The
name.
the one that drew the crazy mural. Someone in the live chat will put it in.
Someone please twisted somebody. I have no idea why I'm drawing a blank on her name right now.
Maria Farmer.
Maria Farmer, yes.
Farmer.
She made allegations that Ivana Trump was with Ghislaine Maxwell going around scouting for, model talent together. Okay. So she put all three of Trump's wives there, in connection with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I didn't know the Marla Maples stuff until, I saw it a podcast with Del Bigtree where she's like, I'm such good friends with RFK Jr. I went, huh? And then I went back and looked, knowing how tight RFK Jr. is with the Epstein nexus, and lo and behold, well, Ghislaine Maxwell was at the wedding of no other than Marla Maples and Donald Trump. Thoughts, Wheezy?
Yeah, she was also at the wedding for Miss Chelsea Clinton. You'll hear about that quite a bit. But this one that you just mentioned, not very many people will ever talk about it. So it's awesome they're bringing it up.
And Marla Maples also, at least to one time that we knew, flew on Jeffrey Epstein's Gulfstream 2 plane with Trump, a young Tiffany, as well as someone who anybody who researches Clinton and his connections to Jeffrey Epstein, who also died in very mysterious circumstances, Mark Middleton.
What are the odds?
And then
coincidence, Mr. Brisson. Just the coincidence.
And of course, to that as well, too, I myself, find abortion abhorrent, but it supposedly, allegedly, Donald Trump went to Jeffrey Epstein when he was dating Marla Maples and she was pregnant with Tiffany Trump, according to Michael Wolff in his Fire and Fury podcast, who Wolff interviewed Epstein, by the way. Epstein said they discussed ways that they were going to try to pressure Marla Maples into aborting Tiffany Trump.
Ooh. Now, this is some of the darker side of Trump that very few people ever hear about. There's another darker side, and I don't know if you ever researched into it, but when this took place when Trump was a kid, essentially, around 10 years old, and his younger brother mysteriously died, I believe in the Scotland area. And it sounds like his parents had to leave. And it's a crazy story. There was a documentary that was out, no longer available. But if you study history, it's eerily reminiscent to a young Chinggis Khan, which is wild. Chinggis Khan, for those that are not too familiar, he was the leader of the Mongolian Empire that ended up taking vast swaths of the world. And legend has it, when he was around 10 years old, he killed his brother because he viewed him as competition, a young 10-year-old. And so that mysterious death of Donald Trump's younger brother, I mean, I don't know. Have you ever gone down that one?
I have not, no.
Yeah,
I've heard of it, but I haven't investigated it.
Okay, no problem. That one, the information has been heavily scrubbed. I mean, I wish we could find it. There once upon a time an actual documentary on it, and unfortunately, it no longer is. So I was just wondering. I thought I'd pick your mind, but
I have nothing to. I've only heard people talk about it, but I have no information to bring.
no
I'm
worries,
sorry.
man. No worries.
Um, so, do you want to talk about Katie Johnson next?
Well, before we get to Katie Johnson, or maybe if it's related, what some of the scandalous behavior that Trump displayed amongst the little girls at the pageants.
Yes. So you're talking about both the little girls and the allegations against Trump as far as,
He's inappropriate. Yeah, he was making
yeah.
inappropriate remarks to
Well,
little girls.
he made inappropriate remarks about his daughter.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me bring. I don't want to quote him verbatim on that, but those were remarks that he had brought up on. One was it. I mean, he's even made up inappropriate remarks about girls and his family as well too on the Howard Stern show. But that's not the one I'm talking about here that he had made about Ivanka herself. But let me see here. Trump's comments. He said in 2016 on The View, if Ivanka wasn't my daughter, perhaps I would be dating her.
Yeah, man, as a parent myself,
You can play
I
the
can't
clip. I
imagine.
have a daughter. I would
Yeah.
never, ever, 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 ever say anything like that about
Yeah,
my
you don't
daughter.
insinuate things like that about your own children, man.
It's not the
And
same
how.
as someone and some people try to excuse it. I just want to finish. It's not the same as saying, you know, "Hey, my daughter, is pretty or whatever, or my son is handsome or something." That's not the same as what Trump is saying here. Like, this is way too far out there. It's not equivalent to it. I'm sorry, it just isn't. As a parent, it's not.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And when you hear people try to gloss over those comments, or chalk it up as nothing, no biggie, I don't understand it. Especially if you have your own kids of your own. You know, are you telling me that's how you? If you're okay with those comments, are you telling me that that's how you address your own children? I have to assume so. If you're willing to give Mr. Trump a pass, it's obscene.
So here you go. You have Star Jones asking Trump. I'm afraid to ask this question, but what would you do if Playboy put Ivanka on the cover of the magazine? And Ivanka says this is going to be an interesting answer. And Trump says it would be really disappointing. Not really, but it would depend on what's inside the magazine. Then Joy Behar says that's the girl's right. People assume there will be nude photos. And Trump said, right, you do assume. And then Meredith Vieira says, but if there weren't, you would have an issue with it. And Trump says, I don't think Ivanka would do that inside the magazine, although she have a very nice figure. That's not like saying, hey, my daughter's pretty. That's sexualizing your daughter. Okay.
Yeah,
And then
talking about her
saying,
figure.
yes, I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. So right before he says that, he sexualizes his own daughter. And
Yeah,
then you have the pictures of her sitting on his lap when she
yeah.
was younger, which in and of itself isn't always. Parents take pictures of their kids, but not when she's kind of like a teenager. It's a little weird, man. Once you put everything into context, it's more than a little weird.
And
Weird.
then when you take the Katie Johnson allegations into it, this is a person who her face is blurred and censored, but from what I understand, she looks similar to Ivanka, which makes the allegations all that weirder.
Yeah, a lot of people don't want to believe the allegations of Katie Johnson, but she is um kind of the main underage allegation that we have against Trump. The multiple lawsuits that she had brought forth. Now, later, I do believe that she was co-opted by um, Harvey Weinstein's
Gloria Allred,
lawyer, which is no, it wasn't
I-
Lisa Bloom.
Lisa
Uh,
Bloom. Yeah, yeah,
yes, who was Gloria Allred's daughter. Okay.
yeah.
And so, yes, I do believe that Lisa Bloom later co-opted Katie Johnson's story and I think tanked it. And that is my belief. And so I posted Katie Johnson's allegations in her lawsuit on my Substack, but she, I guess I should read it because people need to know, but it's graphic. So if there's any children, I guess children should be listening. We've been talking about graphic stuff anyway, so to some
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
But however, if you're sensitive or whatever, or you're a victim of rape or molestation, you might want to skip a few minutes ahead. Okay. So I'm going to read um, her allegations that were directly put into court records. Okay. So the plaintiff Katie Johnson alleges she was subject to extreme sexual and physical abuse by the defendants Donald John Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, including forcible rape during a 4-month time span covering the months of June, September 1994, when plaintiff Johnson was still only a minor of the age of 13. So a lot of people say, well, he only got charged with prostitution and there's 16 or 17 or 18-year-old girls as far as Epstein is concerned. In other parts of the world, they're able to give consent, right? So really it's more of a prostitution angle instead of a molestation angle. Real good job blaming the victim there. All right. Like, but nonetheless, the allegations of Katie Johnson, she was 13. Now, I understand in some very far off places in the world, consent is still that low, but that's not right. In my opinion, I know you would agree with me, Wheezy. And so, you know, i- you know, I'm not saying that there weren't women above age that wanted to be escorts controlled by Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, there probably were some, but we're talking about underage girls that they can't give consent in the United States of America. Okay. And I understand consent is different in every state, but then most states where the consent is lowered, it still requires the consent of the parent. Okay. And so we have to be real here. This is molestation. Okay. Anything saying as such other than that is blaming the victim. These girls were coerced through threats and acts of violence, as well as, kind of, I want to use a correct term. Um, they were kind of brainwashed with gifts and luxury and extravagance as well too, right? And so I do believe that this is molestation. I do believe that this is coercion and rape, and it is wrong. Okay. I want to make that known because there's some people in the conspiracy movement that want to try to justify it in some fashion because of how the rest of the world is. And I'm sorry, that's just not the case. Anything you want to say, Wheezy? I would assume you agree with me.
Yeah, I agree with you, man.
Okay. The plaintiff Katie Johnson alleges she was enticed by promises of money and a modeling career to attend a series of underage sex parties held at New York City residence of defendant Jeffrey Epstein and attended by defendant Donald John Trump. On the first occasion involving the defendant Donald John Trump, the plaintiff Katie Johnson was forced to manually stimulate defendant Trump with the use of her hand upon defendant Trump's erect penis until he reached sexual orgasm. On the second occasion involving defendant Donald John Trump, the plaintiff Katie Johnson was forced to orally copulate defendant Trump by placing her mouth upon defendant. On the third occasion involving defendant Donald John Trump, the plaintiff Katie Johnson was forced to engage in a natural lesbian sex act with her fellow minor and sex slave Maria Doe, age 12. Now, through the work of Wayne Madison, um, it was alluded that Maria was a missing girl. I can't hold on, I have to get her name. Uh we were given more about her name, but we're not sure exactly what her full name is. Now there was something I will say here. There has been follow-up of trying to attempt to find Katie Johnson by Nick Bryant, for example. He's been unable to do so, or at least unable to get her to talk. I think he did find her, but he was unable to get her to talk. Um, I know that the quote unquote the girl Maria is alive. I have been able to confirm that myself. And I have been able to confirm myself what Katie Johnson, to the best of my ability, and what she says is true. I can't really talk a lot about it, but I have been able to confirm it. Okay. She doesn't want to talk. She doesn't.
Yeah.
All right.
And why is that? From what I understand, it's she received death threats.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. And that's why the case went away. I mean, think about how bananas this is. Before Trump's election, there was a little bit of media rumblings that, holy crap, this Katie Johnson case could be the thing that goes on. And then when it was dismissed, I remember there was even pundits who are like, whoa, we dodged the bullet there. It is insane, man. And to me, when it disappeared, I was into conspiracies at that point in time. I think it was around 2016, early 2016. I didn't trust the government, but I wasn't all in the way I am all these years later. So at that point in time, I was like, man, I can't believe the government is actually going to expose this. Katie Johnson and Trump, this is massive. I have faith in the government. And then the case disappeared. And the Democrats, who I thought were going to expose it, they stayed quiet, which is interesting because you'll hear so often a lot of these hardcore, diehard Trumpers always say, well, if he was guilty, the Democrats would have said something a long time ago. They would have brought it up to their attention because I hate Donald Trump. Blah, 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 blah. And my response to that is complete nonsense. It makes sense that they didn't bring it up because they have their own skeletons in their closet. It's two sides of the same coin. What say you, Mr. Brisson?
Yes, I would agree with that. And in closing, I want to say that Maria, who was mentioned in Katie Johnson's lawsuit, is not the missing girl from Waterbury, Connecticut, Marcelia Pino. Okay, they're not one and the same. Okay, I do want to make that known. I do. We thought originally that she was, but I don't. I don't think that she is any longer. I wish there's more that I could say about this, but it's the victims don't want to come forward. So I have to respect that. I just have to.
Yeah, no. And that's fine. Completely understandable. But the fact that we even touched on it, because a lot of people don't even go there at all. So we did cover it. Where would you like to go next, Mr. Brisson?
I just want to finish that one part about the allegations real quick.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Maria was 12 for the sexual enjoyment of Donald Trump. After the sex act, both minors were forced to orally copulate Trump until he achieved sexual orgasm. After zipping up his pants, Trump physically pushed both minors away while angrily berating them for the poor quality of their sexual performance. The fourth and final sexual encounter with Trump and Johnson, Johnson was tied to a bed by Trump, forcibly raped her. During this course of the savage sexual attack, Johnson loudly pleaded with Trump to please wear a condom. Trump responded by violently striking Johnson on the face with his open hand and screaming he would do whatever he wanted, refused to wear protection. After achieving sexual orgasm, Trump put his suit back on, and then when Katie Johnson in tears asked Trump what would happen if he impregnated her, Trump grabbed his wallet and threw some money at her and screamed that she used the money to get a blank abortion. Okay. And then after that, Trump and Epstein also got an argument first of before all that who was going to rape Johnson and take her virginity first. So there was an argument between them, and so that we know of the character of Donald Trump. Her allegations, if you read them in full, her first court document allegations. I'm not necessarily talking about her interview, which is a whole nother discussion of whether or not that interview is true or not. But the very first court document allegation, the very first one, and even the second one, the first one I believe that was put in I think California. Those are the two that I do believe to be true. And if even without the video interview, if you know the character of Trump and you know the character of Epstein, it sounds exactly like them.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And if you want to listen to the Katie Johnson testimony, it's still on YouTube. Just
Mhm.
put in Katie Johnson, Katie Johnson, Johnsson. The thumbnail should feature a woman with her face blurred wearing a blonde wig, and it's about 30 minutes long. Listen to it in its entirety. Some people will dismiss it, say that, oh, it's a bunch of crap, it's a bunch of made up stuff. Listen to it and you decide. Don't take other people's word for it. Don't take my word for it. Don't take people that dismiss its word for it. You listen to it, you come up to your own conclusion. That's what I would recommend.
And in closing, some people will say, well, because Lisa Bloom was involved, we have to discount her testimony. Or because Katie Johnson was alleged drug addict and she was homeless, we have to discount her testimony. Okay. That's blaming the victim.
Yeah, and not only that, I when we went over to Mar-a-Lago, Mar-a-Lago is like a little key off of the mainland, uh, um, out there in West Palm, and when you go onto the key, tons of money everywhere. Mar-a-Lago is a giant property worth tens and tens of millions. Epstein's house has been demolished. They have built a new one in its place. Um, but when you get off of the key there, just a 5 minute drive off of the bridge onto the mainland, there's a lot of poverty there, man. It's a rough neighborhood, and this was the prime grounds for Epstein's recruitment. They wanted impoverished women. They wanted impoverished little girls that came from broken homes, and give them a couple of $100. This was their modi operandi. Like that's what they profiled. Do you want to go into that, Mr. John? Like what kind of girls that they were recruiting?
Yeah, a lot of them were. It was very, very similar to the Franklin scandal. They were recruiting girls off the streets that came from low income households and families.
Yeah.
So
And Virginia Giuffre has said that she met Epstein at Mar-a-Lago. Now, she doesn't say. I do have certain reservations about Virginia Giuffre.
I do as well too. Yes.
Yeah, but the fact that she has said that where her first instance of meeting Jeff Epstein was, and it happened to be at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, that's pretty wild. But a lot of people seems to just fly below the radar for whatever reason.
Agreed. Yeah, and I would say too as well. Sorry, Katie Johnson didn't get any money. Should really make you think.
Yeah,
really make you think.
So and it kind of
and she's not paraded about, and she's not heard about, right? We should really make you think. And also with Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who does
she's
she seem not?
ballin', bro.
Who does she seem not to talk about?
Trump.
Yeah, and Sky Roberts, man, he was a decorated handyman for Donald John Trump, her father, right?
Yeah.
Got a horse ranch, mid-2000s, right?
And not only that, maybe we can touch on Virginia Giuffre and why we have reservations, because Virginia Giuffre, for those that may not be familiar, she's been paraded, quote unquote, around as one of the most well-known victims, well-known Epstein victims. And what first started making me question a lot about her was how she was living an opulent lifestyle, man. She was #balling, these gold necklaces, nice cribs and everything. Meanwhile, so many more hundreds, if not thousands, of Epstein victims are forgotten about, living in trailer parks in West Palm. No one giving a shit about them. So why is this one being propped up and being on Dateline NBC or Fox News making all these appearances? But as we just stated, it's funny how he's one of the probably the most loudest one
And the most known.
and the most known. And she's like, oh no, I never saw Donald Trump doing anything. And it is her attorney that there's an infamous clip that a lot of these MAGAs, a lot of these Trumpers will show
Bradley Edwards
with Derek Bros, my man.
And his own things that Bradley Edwards said as well too, but we'll get to that. But yes, but go ahead.
Yeah, so in this little clip, Derek Bros brings up the Trump Epstein connection, and a lot of these Trumpers will clip out the first part of it. And Derek Bros has often talked about how his interview gets clipped out and misused because a lot of these MAGAs will use it to state their case, but they don't. It's taken out of context, is what I'm trying to get at.
Agreed. And we also have, as I've brought up, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody mention this, when I found that Jeffrey Epstein was quoted on page 6 about being quote unquote thrown out of Mar-a-Lago, right? Because that's where they get Bradley Edwards comments, both in the limited hangout book James Patterson Filthy Rich about Epstein, right? Like we got this in one of the very next books that James Patterson writes is the one he co-authored with Bill Clinton, right? So it's very interesting, that James Patterson's exposing Jeffrey Epstein and lived, very close to him in West Palm Beach, didn't know anything was going on. And then literally the next book, he's writing about Bill Clinton after he wrote Filthy Rich. So, or at least helped to write Filthy Rich, which is very, very odd, in my opinion. I would assume you would find it odd as well, too, Wheezy, right? It doesn't make much sense to me. But anyway, you have right here for page 6, October 15th, 2007. Sex case victims lining up. Lawyers for Manhattan billionaire investor Jeffrey Epstein, who agreed to plead guilty to soliciting underage hookers. Remember, that's all he was charged for, right? Are braced for a slew of lawsuits from as many as 40 young women who came to his Palm Beach mansion for massage sessions, page 6 has learned. In his bid to squash possible pileup of messy civil actions, Epstein's legal eagles, led by Gerald Lefcourt, are mulling a possible lump sum to settle the claims all at once, said sources close to the police investigation. But the attorneys believe many of the suits could be frivolous. You're a girl who is broke using drugs. Here's your shot at getting some money, one insider said. During the probe that led Epstein's plea deal, which has put him behind bars for 18 months, underage girls told cops they claimed to be 18 or over and gave the financier massages for hundreds of dollars per session. One girl described the court documents as just 14, said Epstein used a purple vibrator on her while she was partially stripped. Cops says Epstein's assistant Sarah Kellen helped arrange the massages. Lawyers have identified up to 40 women who come forward, even though some of them don't even see Epstein. They just accompanied their friends and stayed in the kitchen and had lunch, the source said. Epstein's legal team is also fighting to get some portions of the police report chronicling the sleazing activities. For example, the state police reported finding Mr. Epstein's garage a sex toy. But later found the sex toy was really a broken salad fork, the insider said. Lefcourt had no comment. Meanwhile, the Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach last night confirmed a website report that Epstein has been banned there. He would use a spa to try to procure girls, but one of them, a masseuse about 18 years old, he tried to get her to do things, the source told us. Her father found out about it and went absolutely ape crap. Epstein's not allowed back. However, so that's a common narrative that we're told, right? However, Epstein denies that he's banned from Mar-a-Lago. As a fact, he was recently invited to an event there.
That is awesome.
Which is interesting because we know about the fallout between Trump and Epstein originally happened over the bid for the Abe Gossman estate, right? Yeah. Well, that was 2004, and this is many years later, meaning he still went to Mar-a-Lago. That Trump and Epstein never had the fallout, if you logically follow that. Okay? So there you go. That right there.
Let's talk about the Michael Wolff tapes.
Two common held myths, right?
Yeah, 100%. So maybe some people have no clue what the Michael Wolff tapes are. who the hell that even is. Let's touch up a little bit on that.
Yeah, so Michael Wolff is a journalist. He has chronicled the Trump administration, chronicled the Trump administration over the various years. He wrote various books about Trump. He is progressive leaning, which some people will automatically dismiss Michael Wolff on that. They shouldn't. Trump has himself continuously given interviews to Michael Wolff because his arrogance knows no bounds, right? You think he wouldn't trust him, right? But yet he just keeps talking to him. All right. And he like you said, to the two people that we knew, they interviewed Jeffrey Epstein. One is Council for National Policy member Stephen Ketamine Bannon, and the other is Michael Wolff. And so in those Epstein tapes, like I mentioned, was when we get Epstein saying that he would counseled Trump and tried to help him to get an abortion, right? Because Trump wanted an abortion. When Marla Maples was his girlfriend, he was cheating on Ivana with Marla Maples. And she was pregnant with Tiffany Trump, right? Who she did later have and not have the abortion, right? So there's you can go listen to what was released by the interview. Now, me and Weezy don't fully trust Michael Wolff. All right. For example, he's not putting out all the tapes, right? Because he said, well, people don't really have any interest in it. It doesn't matter. As a journalist, you should release it anyway. Okay. And so if you're trying to so-called take down Donald Trump, why wouldn't you? All right. Like, to
Yeah,
me, that doesn't make any sense.
what rubs me the wrong way about Mr. Michael is how he's more interested in the clicks and views. He's kind of holding the Epstein tapes hostage from the rest of us, because that's what he's really looking for, is clicks and views. And so he doesn't come across as someone that is fully committed to the truth about Epstein coming out. He's trying to capitalize off of it, is what he's trying to do.
Yes, and I think it's controlled as well too, right?
Yeah, that too.
So, just like you had mentioned earlier about my issues with Virginia Roberts Giuffre. Now, do I believe that Giuffre, was trafficked by Epstein, and do I believe that some of the things that she had mentioned, if not a majority of things that she had mentioned, of her allegations, especially against Alan Morton Dershowitz, for example, I do. I think where Virginia Roberts Giuffre, where she is in the wrong, is I believe that she has been strongly financially compensated for her leaving out Trump, and her father and family have been strongly financially compensated for her leaving out Trump. So again, it's not like I'm coming against her as a victim. I'm just saying she's not telling the truth, sadly, because it benefits her. Now, maybe she was afraid that they were going to kill her. Fine. I'm not going to say that may or may not be true either. Okay. And she decided to take the money for what it's worth. There's allegations of whether or not, she's really helping victims as much as she should or not, but we all, fall short to some degree. But I'm just saying that, I do have reservations about her. And there are reservations about Maria Farmer, for example. There are reservations about Kirby Sommers, for example. There's no reservations that I know of that are substantial against Katie Johnson, other than people just not liking what she says and just not liking Lisa Bloom's involvement. Okay. Outside of that, that's all people have. Okay. So, again, I would say Katie Johnson, most people have never heard of her, Wheezy. So her allegations probably have a good substantial weight to them compared to Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who most people, when they know about Epstein, know about her allegations, and her allegations leave out, very interestingly enough, Donald Trump. And not only do they leave out Donald Trump, they bolster Donald Trump and the people that think that he's our guy, that are MAGA, that he didn't have anything to do with Epstein. So
Yeah.
not only do they axe Trump out, they bolster him.
Yeah.
And so I think it's problematic. Now you could argue, Sky Richards' involvement and him buying a horse ranch in the mid 2000s, that's circumstantial. I don't necessarily think it is. Myself personally, I would assume you feel the same way, correct?
Yeah, 100%. And what you just said in a similar vein reminds me of a lot of what we see in the mainstream media, even in the quote unquote independent media. If you're hearing about these big names and they're making the rounds, you should question them, Maybe some people listening and hearing me say that will disagree with me. Maybe they'll say, oh, well, you're just jealous. Jealous of what? Why are we seeing these people constantly? There has to be a motive. What we see on the TV, whatever the news event, whatever the subject, we are seeing it because we have been allowed to see it. So what's the narrative behind it? And so going with back to Virginia Giuffre and the difference between her and Katie Johnson's nowhere to be found. She's gone away. People have forgotten about her, her allegations against Trump. She's disappeared. And yet Virginia Giuffre is still making the rounds.
And what about the underage girl that I
with
just
her bling
mentioned
bling
in that page 6? That that where's she? Like that's not Katie Johnson. That's another girl that was molested. So we have 3. We have Maria, we have Katie Johnson, and we have this third unknown, unnamed girl, right? So again, where are they? And so you start. So with Virginia Roberts Giuffre, I just want to read something real quick, Wheezy, if you don't mind. And again, like I think there are truth to her allegations. My issue is that I think she leaves out Trump, and sadly, I think it's for self gain. Okay, which is not good. It really isn't. It doesn't discredit the horrific things that happened to her, but it's not good. Like again, like a lot of people say why you're going after a victim. I'm not. I'm being what I see, to be honest.
Yeah.
About what happened. So, I wrote, I find her above statement. Okay, so Virginia Robert Giuffre answers questions or deposition about not seeing Donald Trump around the time Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were allegedly trafficking her. Virginia Giuffre does not see Donald Trump when she flies on any of Jeffrey Epstein's plane or in his residences. I find her above statement suspect because during the period Virginia Giuffre was allegedly being trafficked, 1999 to 2004, Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump were still known to be good friends and very close, and were often seen together. For example, the Pro-Am tennis tournament at Mar-a-Lago, Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, Ghislaine Maxwell, and a girl made to look older flew on Trump's private jet and ate at Mar-a-Lago. And at Comrade Black's party all occurred during 2000. We also have the Vicky Ward's article in the deposition of Juan Alisi that Donald Trump ate at Epstein's mansion during this time. Finally, Donald Trump died at Jeffrey Epstein's New York City East Side mansion in 2003. Okay. And RFK Jr. was around a lot that time as well, too, enough for Juan Alisi to also name him as being someone who frequently was there, too. So again, for Virginia Roberts Giuffre to say, I never saw Trump, especially when she was trafficked from Mar-a-Lago, as far as she never saw Trump and Epstein together, when Sky Roberts worked for Donald Trump as a handyman, all right, it doesn't make any sense to me because it's too many years. If it was a one-off, fine. I can accept that. But for her to be trafficked by Epstein for those amount of years, and then for her not to see Donald Trump and Epstein ever together, that's sketch.
And the other thing that I would bring up when I hear people try to use Virginia Giuffre's claims in favor of Trump's involvement with Epstein is Mr. Bradley Edwards certainly was a defense attorney for some Epstein victims. He was not the attorney for all of them. So that's something that a lot of people forget. He didn't represent every single Epstein victim. And so it's something that these people are desperate to hang on to try to remove the hardcore, the super close relationship between Trump and Epstein. Again, as I stated earlier, your friendship with someone is next level when you are flying on their plane, when they are flying on your plane. It's next level stuff, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, Sky Roberts worked as a maintenance worker at Mar-a-Lago. And the reason why Virginia Roberts Giuffre was even there was because of him. Now, we know at least 2 years that Giuffre traveled around with Epstein, right? At least between 2000 and 2002, roughly. may or may not have been longer, may or may not have been shorter. The point is, within 2 years, not one time, not one time when your dad's working and getting awards for being a maintenance worker at Mar-a-Lago. It just doesn't add up, Wheezy. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, man. And again, it's just to try to minimize that relationship, in any way that they can. And so I suppose we can touch about, the relationship souring at some point. And I think you did, actually, where it did sour, but it wasn't over no heroic attempt. You'll hear different versions of Trump being the hero with the Epstein relationship souring, where he comes in, he breaks down a door, he sees Epstein abusing the girl. He puts the girl over his shoulder. Get out of here, man. Get out of here. You've been banned from Mar-a-Lago. It's so cartoonish. It's ridiculous. And you'll hear people repeat the same nonsense over and over. It was over a real estate deal. It had nothing to do with him being a Superman, saving some little girl from this evil pedophile guy. And I think we need to really hammer down that these guys were friends for well in excess of a decade, 15 years, maybe even further than that. And as I stated at the very beginning, they lived within walking distance from each other. And not only in Florida, their residences weren't too far away in New York as well. So you're going to tell me, I want people to just be rational for 1 second. Here you have these guys that are super tight, close at the hip, for well in excess of a decade, 15 years, 20 years possibly. And this guy didn't know any of the activities that Epstein was doing?
Yeah.
We just talked about a quote where Trump in Vanity Fair says, I've known Jeff Epstein for 15 years. He's a terrific guy. He loves beautiful women, many on the younger side. He knows this guy. This is his homie within walking distance. And you have to be super gosh darn gullible to not think that this guy didn't know anything of Epstein's dealings underground. Because once Epstein came down, what did you hear from a lot of these people? Oh, man, we all knew what Epstein was up to, and everyone's trying to distance themselves in a very similar way to what people associated with Diddy are doing right now. And so I think that's one of those points that doesn't really get stressed enough, how super close they live to each other and how close in relationship as friends they were. Super chummy enough to ride each other's planes. And that needs to be hammered down, man, because it's ridiculous. It's insane.
Agreed.
Sorry,
Agreed.
man. I just had to go throw in that little tirade.
Yes, you're right. You're right. So, I mean, what do you... I guess it's... I mean... I'll say this. You have Trump's administration connections to Jeffrey Epstein. So we talked about Bannon and Epstein, right? That's very curious as well. You have Rudy Giuliani being photographed sitting next to Jeffrey Epstein at parties as well too, and you have Trump, being really good friends with Rudolph Giuliani, right? Alan Morton Dershowitz defending Trump, right, and being very close to Donald Trump as well too, even defending him against his impeachment, right?
Impeachment. Cernovich and Dershowitz both defended Epstein, and now you fast forward to today, Dershowitz and Cernovich are helping out Trump. Crazy. Nothing to see there, folks. One of the recipients to these Epstein files, one of these binders, was Mr. Cernovich. I don't know if
Yep.
at any point you're going to talk about that, but yeah, it's super wild. Alan Dershowitz, if you want to touch on him, because he doesn't really get brought up. This is a guy, this is what makes me question Virginia Giuffre as well with a lot of her stuff, because Mr. Slimy, I left my underwear on, Alan freaking Dershowitz has been able to slime his way out of these Epstein allegations by constantly going after Virginia Giuffre. So that makes me question Virginia Giuffre's reliability, and if she's just being used for some of this damage control in a weird sense. I can't figure it out completely, but it would make sense because Alan Dershowitz still makes the rounds. You would think someone like him would be staying away from the limelight after all his embarrassing news has been out, but he still makes the rounds on TV and acts like everything is all good. It's insane.
And the back and forth between Alan Dershowitz and Virginia Roberts Giuffre, and them suing each other, and
Yeah.
Giuffre backing off of her allegations against Alan Morton Dershowitz, right? And the suing by Alan Morton Dershowitz, and on the behest of Dershowitz, and Mike Cernovich, to try to protect the unsealing of the Epstein victims, when in reality it was to protect Dershowitz.
Yeah.
They wanted to get to the victims. They wanted to actually know the victims' names. They actually, if you really look into the lawsuit, it was so that those victims were unsealed, so that they could threaten them. Okay, that's really that simple. Cernovich is a dirtbag. All right, he really truly is.
Yeah. Yeah, and every time I see him, on TV, on one of these large networks, acting like the voice of reason, he's the one championing anti-Semitism bills. It makes my skin crawl. This little slimy little troll that abused who knows how many kids. And the blackmail on him, there has to be an entire filing cabinet just on him alone. And he's been blackmailed up the wazoo. I mean, the fact that he's still on TV on all these networks and rarely ever gets challenged for his role in the Epstein debacle is insane to me.
Yeah, you're right. Any more on Epstein that you want to talk about, brother? I mean, we could probably do another show.
Yeah, we could do that. I guess if we want to just touch on RFK's connection real quick before we move on, RFK's connection to Epstein, because some people may not have listened to the show we did. If this is the first time you're listening to the show, John and I have done several episodes. The last episode we did was an Epstein episode, so we did go into detail all that. But
and there's more information on my Substack as well that we didn't cover. Yeah. And I'm finishing my PowerPoint presentation. I'm even adding. I mean, there's numerous allegations against Trump for rape and molestation of girls and of women as well. And there's even so-called allegations and settlements about little boys as well too. Lest us forget. So Trump is a pedophile, a rapist, and a sexual degenerate.
Yeah. And a scam artist, and a Ponzi scheme artist, and a great actor. I mean, there's a reason why he's president right now. So some people may be listening to us right now and say, oh, well, he was better than the Biden and Kamala administration, blah, 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 blah. What if I told you, and you can disagree with me if need be, Mr. Brisson, but what if I told you that the Biden and Kamala administrations were the perfect setup?
Oh, yes.
For a Trump savior scenario. They perfectly tanked everything. They perfectly sent everything to shit so that Trump, the guy that almost allegedly got his head blown off, the guy that which they were using lawfare against, the ultimate victim in Donald Trump could then come in and save the day. What are your thoughts, Mr. Brisson?
Yes, Wheezy, for someone in the chat who says, did I miss it? Someone in the chat said,
I
"What
heart
World Scout
Wheezy.
said Trump doesn't seem gay to me, but maybe." Could you search for the Vanity Fair article? Where's my Roy Cohn? The picture
All
of
right.
Trump dressed up as a Centurion with Roy Cohn.
Oh, was he the
Uh,
one where he's laying on the bed?
Not that one. This is the one where him and Roy Cohn went partying, and ask yourself, during the height of AIDS and HIV, right? During the 1980s, right? Roy Cohn's Trump's lawyer. He's paying for him to live in Trump Tower. They're really good friends. Roy Cohn's Trump's fixer, right? But all of a sudden, Trump cuts Roy Cohn off and doesn't want to have anything to do with him. He doesn't want to have anything to do with him because Roy Cohn has quote unquote AIDS.
Which
So
is the image you wanted me to put up?
scroll up. Type in "Where's my Roy Cohn" and then type in Trump. And type in Studio 54. There you go. First picture.
This one right here?
Yes, please.
Whoa, that's Trump?
That is Trump.
Oh, hell
You
no.
want to walk that back? That
Oh,
Trump ain't
hell no.
also gay as well too. You want to walk that back?
This is new. Breaking news, man. I had no idea, dude.
I opened up my conference with Billy Ray Valentine when we did the Free World Conference, the very first one. I opened up with that picture, and people just could not believe it. Could not believe it.
So
Trump's as straight as they come, right, Wheezy? Straight as they come.
Oh man! So for people that are just listening in audio, because the bulk of my audience is listens on audio players, podcasts, you must watch the video. Go to this timestamp. It is an hour and 32 minutes in, and the image. What are we looking at right here, John?
We are looking at Roy Cohn, the known homosexual lawyer, who was also a groomer as well too. And there is. I had lost it, man. One time I had found in this book, I had lost it. Me and George from cavdev.org looked for it forever, could not find it. Josh Reeves talked about it before. I found a paragraph where this guy was describing from this book a quote from Roy Cohn and these people that went and visited his yacht, that there was a blonde, young, blue-eyed real estate mogul on his yacht half naked in a swimsuit, right? Well, obviously that's
Whoa.
Trump, but I can't find that book for the life of me. I've spent hours upon hours upon hours searching for that book. All right. I saw it with my own eyes. I read it with my own eyes. I could not find a digital copy of it anywhere now. I don't even remember what book it was. I just remember reading that after Josh Reeves had mentioned it. And I was like, is that real? And then I looked and I found the book and I can't find it anymore. I can't find it. All right. But anyway, this is Roy Cohn, who's a known homosexual. All right, who was the lawyer that prosecuted Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, right? Who was Trump's fixer, right? Who was under McCarthy in the Red Scare, right? That's Roy Cohn, right? And that's a young Donald Trump at Studio 54 dressed up as a Roman centurion.
That is insane, man. I never even knew this damn picture existed. Why the hell hasn't this been blasted everywhere? So Donald Trump, a younger Donald Trump, but wearing eyeliner. He looks like he is Mr. Roy Cohn's little gay slave, Roman sex slave.
He would be his twink.
It is insane, man. Holy smokes. I honestly never even knew this picture existed.
And it's obviously Donald Trump. It's obviously him. It looks exactly like him in pictures he was younger. It looks exactly like him. There you go. So, there's also allegations too that Trump and Roy Cohn used to walk hand in hand on New York City on their way to Studio 54 as well too. So yeah, I mean, what can I say?
Well, again, you guys can look up those pictures. I pulled it up by putting what was the search terms again? Where's my Roy Cohn?
Where's my Roy Cohn? Donald Trump
Studio 54. Yep, and it should be the first image that comes up. That is insane, man. So there you go. I think any word had that that comment. Man, that is insane. So I think we should move into perhaps, well, something that has been forgotten about the Trump, early Trump real estate mogul career was the lawsuit that he settled where him and his dad were accused of not renting apartments to blacks and Latinos. They settled that court. They settled that case. And after they settled, Mr. Trump put out a shit ton of propaganda, try to make it minimize the impact of that settlement.
Well, what do you
What happened there?
expect? I mean, with that, I mean, what do you expect with Trump, the slumlord, right? And the allegations of not his father, but his grandfather, and the way that they made money in the Yukon, allegedly, right? So it shouldn't surprise anyone. Just like with Trump not paying the Irish workers for them building buildings for him, as well as uh, just the numerous just like fraud allegations of Trump. You brought up Trump University earlier. Trump's known to pay people as little as possible, or to use people like Roy Cohn to get people caught up in the legal system so that they never see any money. Is very common for Trump to do such things. But one thing that Trump does love to do, and his father loves to do so much, is give money to Chabad and Israeli causes. Right? You can find there's an article you might be able to find, Wheezy, where it says that like Donald Trump's father, Fred Trump, donated to so many Jewish causes that people thought he was Jewish. So, I mean,
I'll look for it right now.
some people say that's just how things were in New York City, especially when it comes to real estate. But they've always been in the uh in the pocket of uh kind of wealthy elitist Jews, among others. Trump also being a Russian asset too, that a lot of people just want to throw off to the side. Um, but it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, there. How many allegations, like we said, of fraud, of rape, of molestation, of poor character, I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on, right? But most people just don't want to. Yeah, Miriam Adelson funding Trump, if we're talking about the Zionist connections, right? I mean, there you go. Sheldon Adelson funding Trump. The Mercers funding Trump. The Mercers at Cambridge Analytica, with Bannon, pushing Trump in 2016 and getting Trump elected through Facebook campaigns. I mean, I could go. We could do hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of why Trump's not our guy. And people, it just they'll either will stop listening the moment we say that don't trust Donald Trump, like the very beginning of the show, or their eyes will glaze over and many of them won't listen. Some of them will. Some of them will. But like I said, we could continue to talk all day long about how Trump should not be trusted. There's so much stuff that we could talk about. I mean, the vaccine, the pandemic, for one, 15 days to stop the spread turns into 45 days to stop the spread, giving Fauci the award, right? Working directly with Palantir through Operation Tiberius Kirk, which has everybody's health data, still to this day, saying the vaccine saved lives and the vaccine is great, and still never repenting of the vaccine. And,
Still bragging about it.
yes, exactly.
And just to kind of go back real quick, when Ghislaine Maxwell was, I think she was going to trial or she was going to get sentenced, and someone asked him, any thoughts on Ghislaine Maxwell, and he basically said, "Yeah, I knew her for quite a while. I wish her well."
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, I mean,
I wish her
obviously.
well.
Yeah.
Not, he didn't wish the victims in all this well. He wished Ghislaine Maxwell well. And real quick, man, when I started doing my little podcast, man, and I'm so humbled by the little audience that has grown, you know, um, truly, truly humbled. But one of the reasons that I started, if you go back to my early episodes, was bringing up the Trump Epstein connections. Um, I and the reason I was doing it is because I wasn't hearing anyone else do it. It was pissing me off.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
well, shit, if no one's doing it, I'm going to do it. So if anyone thinks that I'm only now doing it, no, go back to the first few episodes that I've ever published when I didn't even have an audience. No one was listening to me. I was going off about this because I do have a passion for it. I'm tired of people being deceived by these con artists, these charlatans. And not only are they charlatans and con artists, but they're sexual deviants. They're pedophiles. They're molesters. And we give them a pass. When we were kids, we grew up on this idea that the presidency was this office to be respected. And now when you see a Bill Clinton, a Donald Trump, a Joe Biden that sniffs people's little kids' hairs, it isn't what we thought it was.
And like we mentioned this whole thing, right? Another person who was Roy Cohn's mentee was Roger Stone, and Roger Stone's also connected with Trump as well too, right? And Roger Stone is in battle with his own pedophile scandal with Matt Gaetz and with Joel Greenberg out of Florida, right? Roger Stone is also a scumbag. Paul Manafort, allegedly, if you believe the emails from his daughter, was when his wife had gotten a head injury, okay, and she was very out of it, had business partners running the train on his wife while she had mental cognition issues from getting was ill, like these are the degenerates that make up the Trump administration. I'm not saying there are degenerates that make up Biden's and Obama's and all that before anybody starts getting in a tizzy. Okay. Of course there are. All right. But the thing is most people, unless they're on the left, you criticize Obama and Biden more than Obama, they'll be okay with it. The moment you start talking about Trump, people immediately have to defend him. And that's the reason why we're talking about this stuff, because it's crazy. Trump, there's more evidence of Trump and Epstein than there is of Clinton and Epstein. Okay? There's more evidence of RFK Jr. and Epstein than Clinton and Epstein. But people don't want to look at it because it's people on the right that they've deemed are heroes. Okay? It's sad. It really is, man. But we keep talking about it. I mean, for example, for conservatives and Christians, Trump repeatedly celebrated transsexuals being in Miss Universe pageants. All right. He hasn't changed. He's still pro LGBTQT plus. He's still holding gay rallies and transsexual rallies at Mar-a-Lago, even when he's signing these executive orders. The whole thing's a sham. All of it's a sham. But people don't want to care. And they want to defend Trump because they think that Trump's going to come save them, riding on a white horse like a fiery steed. I need a hero. Just the same way I think with RFK Jr. RFK Jr. is literally pushing the need for measles vaccinations. He had an op-ed on Fox News for the need of measles vaccinations. But nobody cares. Elon Musk is saying the mRNA is going to cure cancer, which is Operation Cancer Moonshot Palantir under the Biden administration and Operation Stargate. And people don't care. It's like you talk about these things and their eyes glaze over, Wheezy. It's crazy to me. They're like, but the economy, but Biden's so much worse. And look, there's far more evidence, and I'm not excusing creepy Joe Biden, okay? But there is far more sustained evidence and allegations of Trump being a pedophile and allegations of Trump being a rapist than what is out there about Biden. But people are resolute that Biden is a pedophile, resolute that Biden is a rapist. And yes, I understand the allegations that are out there against Biden in him being a rapist. I'm not excluding those. Okay. But they're so willing to be bought in for that when there is quadruple, if not more, the evidence for Trump. And they're
Yeah,
just like, what about Biden? What about Biden? What about Biden?
that's what pisses me off as well. Um, in both extremists on both sides, whether it's the extremists on the left, whether it's extremists on the right, they're quickly to point the finger at the other guy. It's the other guy that's the bad, evil guy. But my guy, not my guy. This guy's good and wholesome. And it's the people on the far left. It's the people on the far right. When in reality, they're all scumbags. There are no saviors.
Have the Clintons flown any of the? Is there any flight logs of Clintons being on the planes? Yes. However, was Clinton's numbers in Jeffrey Epstein's little black book? No.
No, but he was also a guest at the White House no less than 40 times, which is crazy.
But go look at the numbers, the amount of numbers that Epstein has for Trump's entire family, including Trump himself. And you tell me who he wasn't closer to. If you take was he there?
Yeah, you froze up for a second, bro.
If you take the totality of evidence of all the pictures of Trump and Epstein together, of all the allegations, okay, of the address book, of the depositions of Wanalisi, for example, of the flights that Trump flew, not the Epstein flew, not only that Trump flew on Epstein's plane, but Epstein flew on Trump's plane. Like if you put all of this together in the grand totality of evidence, you have more for Trump and Epstein than you have Trump and the Clintons. And I'm not excusing the crimes of the Clintons. I'm not. Yeah. We got to be realistic here, though.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And that's why we shouldn't trust any of them. I mean, they're all dirty. I mean, yeah, you can argue who's dirtier, or you can also argue who hid their tracks a little bit better and wasn't as sloppy. That's another argument one could make, I suppose. But the fact of the matter is they're all dirty. They're all compromised. They've all been blackmailed. And I do want to talk about Trump University. So I had a gentleman that the conversation went awry at some point. But prior to it going off the rails, I brought up Trump University. This individual never even heard of Trump University. This is someone that calls himself an Epstein researcher, but never heard of Trump University. I don't know what to say about that, but Trump University is one of these things, as I mentioned earlier, where when I saw Trump become president in 2016, I was like, holy smokes. How, in what reality is it possible that someone that settled for $25 million for a certified Ponzi scheme can become president of the free world? It was insane. What was Trump University, Mr. Brisson?
So is there any way you could bring up any YouTube? Did any of the ads still exist for Trump University and learn how to be a real estate mogul like Trump? Do any of those still exist at all? Do you know? I'm sure they do. I remember seeing the advertisements when it was in the news or whatever. So, the Trump University was run by the Trump Organization. It was a real estate training program that was run from like the mid 2000s to I think 2010, 2011 is when it ended. And, it was being, criticized. First of all, it was not accredited. It didn't mean anything if you got a Trump University accreditation, right? It doesn't mean anything, for one. And two, they would pump people for, 3 or 5 day seminars of retreat and kind of like the stereotypical, high sales, pressure tactics that you would normally see used in timeshares, right? Of trying to get people, you got to sign now. It's going to go up if you don't sign it, because trying to get people kind of sign up for courses or sign up for retreats or whatever and stuff like that and everything. And some of the courses or retreats, quote unquote, never really never happened, right? So a lot of people didn't even get what they were promised initially when they signed up, and they had to keep paying more money, to remain inside Trump University. So obviously it was just a scam. It was just a scam to get people's monies, with Trump not fulfilling his promises.
Yeah, and then the recruiters were also trained to get credit card information.
Yeah.
So that they could secure payments, bro. So the recruiters were specially trained on
and they were trained in
pushing
neurolinguistic programming to try to get people to be able to, and it is marketing, to be fair, okay, but they were trying to do whatever they could to get access, like you mentioned, to people's money by hook or by crook, by one way or another.
And not only that, so I did real estate for 12 years. The information taught at quote unquote Trump University could have easily been got, by just becoming friends with a trusted real estate agent. They would have taught you anything and much more than any of these courses would have taught you, in which you got a useless certificate that wouldn't. So you get a degree from Trump University that you can't use anywhere, and you pay
and it doesn't mean
college
anything.
tuition. Yeah, it's insane, man. So let's play this commercial. It's about 2 minutes long, and here we go.
At Trump University, we teach success.
That's
what it's
right.
all about. Success. It's going to happen to you.
Donald Trump is without question the world's most famous businessman. As
That's
a real
right.
estate developer, he has reshaped the New York skyline with some of that great city's most prestigious and elegant buildings. Now, Donald Trump brings his years of experience to the world of business education with the launch of Trump University.
If you're going to achieve anything, you have to take action. And action is what Trump University is all about. But action is just a small part of Trump University. Trump University is about knowledge, about a lot of different things. Above all, it's about how to become successful.
He didn't say nothing. It's a whole bunch of nothing.
We're going to have professors and adjunct professors that are absolutely terrific people, terrific brains, successful. We are going to have the best of the best.
Look at that clown.
Honestly, if you don't learn from them, if you don't learn from me, if you don't learn from the people that we're going to be putting forward,
Could he call us
these are
the
all
people from
that are
Wharton?
handpicked by me.
I'm just saying.
Then you're just not going to make it in terms of the world of success. I think the biggest step towards success is going to be sign up at Trump University. We're going to teach you about business. We're going to teach you better than the business schools are going to teach you. And I went to the best business school. We're going to teach you better. It's going to be a shorter process. It's not going to involve years and years of your life. It's going to be less expensive. And I think it's going to be a better education. And it's going to be what you need to know. So we're going to teach you business. We're going to teach you life. We're going to teach you salesmanship. We're going to teach you what you need to know. And we're going to also make sure that no matter what you do, as I said before, you're going to love it. Because if you don't love it, it's never, ever going to work.
You remember, he said
Get
he
outta here.
handpicked the instructors, right? Well, in a deposition, he said he didn't. So, oopsie doopsie, there you go. It's just a whole bunch of lies. Like, he didn't even write the art of the deal. It was ghostwritten, right? I mean, come on. I mean, he's a huckster. Trump's a huckster. He always has been.
So if you put Trump University lawsuit, tons and tons of articles come out where his settlement was for $25 million. Loads and loads of it. One gentleman was thought that I was blowing smoke. He never heard the thing. So there's the evidence. Just put in Trump University lawsuit. Part of the deal that they made to these folks as part of the Trump University package was that they would take a picture with Donald Trump. What they weren't told was that the picture with Donald Trump involved a life-size cutout of Donald Trump.
You imagine you're paying $35,000, right?
$35,000. You're like, if I paid 35 G's, I better have my goddamn picture with Donald Trump. And
So
then
imagine, yeah, and
you
then
you got your little tassel, you got your little hat, you're excited, and then you have to take a picture next to a goddamn cardboard cutout. This is the guy that became president. It is insane, man. A 100% Ponzi scheme, man.
And then Pam Bondi was going to join in the lawsuit, right? Till she received that 25. It wasn't even a fat check, Wheezy. Wasn't even a fat check. $25,000 was enough to pay off Pam Bondi.
To sweep it under the rug. But here's my theory. I don't have hard evidence to back it up, but you have to wonder if backdoor arrangements
Quid pro
were
quo?
made where once he became president, he would be AG. Where is she now? She is AG in the Trump administration. So here you have someone that could have pursued the Trump University lawsuit out here in Florida, but as soon as she got $25,000 less than the tuition for Trump University, she made it go away. So I believe that some other shenanigans were afoot where she was probably promised the AG later on once he became president. And who is the person in charge of releasing Epstein files today in 2025? Oh, wow. It is Pam Bondi. How the hell people don't really talk about that aspect or that angle is beyond me, man.
But they were on her desk. They were on her desk, Wheezy. They were on her desk, and they weren't on her desk. And binders, and you have
truckloads. Where the hell is this truckload of Epstein files?
And she's threatening. She's threatening. And you have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino at the FBI, and they're just Department of Justice. It's just the deep state swamp dwellers just won't let the files be released, Wheezy. They're working now. The narrative right now is Kash has the FBI working on it day and night, 12 to 16-hour shifts, okay, trying to see what they can disclose and what they can't. Okay, that's the narrative right now in Trump land.
And Trumpers will swallow every bit of it, man, unfortunately. Even we already have a dislike on Rumble. So even as we're speaking, someone's like, no, they're wrong. Not my president. My president won't do any of these things. Not my Donald Trump. My Donald Trump, he had a little pillow in his ear and he survived getting his head blown off. I'll tell you who what. It's insane, man. And so, I mean, if people are that far gone, it doesn't matter what else we say. It's just, I don't know.
What about Alexander Acosta and the sweetheart deal, right? And Alexander Acosta spoke to the CNP in the early 2000s about sex trafficking, and then gives Jeffrey Epstein this sweetheart deal, and is Secretary of Labor under the first Trump administration.
Secretary of Labor. And Alexander Acosta also left us with that awesome little tidbit about Epstein being connected to intelligence.
Oof.
It's super wild, man. Super wild. I don't know if we kind of want to go back to Steve Bannon, Steve Ketterman Bannon, as you refer to him, and Mr. William Barr, the ex-AG. William Barr, connected to the Epstein case, is so bananas because you hear Trumpers often say how, well, Epstein was arrested under the Trump administration. My quick reply to that is, he also died under a highly controversial way under the Trump administration, a death that was covered up under the Trump administration, which included the likes of William Barr. William Barr promised us a full investigation that never came. And crazily enough, no one on the left ever pressured him about it. No one has ever brought it up since. Promising a full investigation into the alleged Epstein death, and no one has brought it up to this day. It is insane. People have already memory hold it. What are your thoughts, Mr. Brisson?
I mean, William Pelham Barr was our guy, right? Remember Trust Barr, like Trust Sessions and Trust all the rest of them, right? And now all the MAGA people hate William Pelham Barr, right? We know Barr is as dirty as they come. Now, as far as his father, Donald Barr, as far as him specifically putting Jeffrey Epstein at the Dalton School, the timeline doesn't fully add up. It's like he may have, he may not have. It's not concrete. Okay. But that being said, though, however, Donald Barr wrote that book, Space Relations, which in and of itself is, ugh. And then Barr himself, William Barr, is a deep state swamp dweller as they come. I got a little short. Actually, you can bring it up right now if you want to. Go to my YouTube channel. We read the documents. Just so it's very short. It's only a few minutes. It goes through the life and crimes of William Barr, which I think is very important to bring up who he is and very much, why he is the fixer.
Do you have it in a playlist? Where am I going to find this?
Let me see it. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Is it one of your more popular videos? I'm just trying to find it real quick.
It should be labeled under the playlist shorts.
Playlist shorts.
Unless it has not been taken down. Yeah, here it is. The sheriff is in town. There you go.
Playlist shorts. Okay, I got you here.
It's put in with some funny Q Bar memes.
The sheriff is in town?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Where do you want me to go to? Or
just the beginning, because it's very short.
Beginning. Okay, copy that. Here we go. 1 second. Present.
So we're gonna have some. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Attorney General nominee Barr
helped navigate CIA through rocky times with Congress. Okay. There's a good picture of Barr, right?
Look at that handsome devil there, Mr. William
Barr. Lord C. King and the Franklin scandal.
Ah.
What about Barr and that? All right there.
What does that say?
That's about Craig J. Spence and Lord C. King and Barr's possible involvement is being part of the Bush administration at the time. He would have been who would have covered up.
Okay.
Would have helped to cover it up.
Yeah.
Work with the Department of Justice, right?
Okay, what does this article read?
So that's the Washington Times that I had mentioned it. The homosexual prostitution inquiry ensnares VIP with Reagan and Bush. That would be the Call Boy scandal, which would be Franklin scandal, Lord C. King.
Sweet.
The Reagan and Bush were both homosexuals, by the way. And pedophiles. Oh, look. It's CMP Ronald Reagan and CMP William Barr right there.
Yeah, William Barr and Ronald Reagan shaking hands. Presumably at the White House, would you agree?
Correct, yes. As he worked, with the Reagan and Bush administrations. There you have about, right there. Grand jury says abuse stories were a carefully crafted hoax from the Omaha World Herald. This would be the media and the grand jury covering up the Franklin scandal. Okay.
All right. Caradori didn't crash himself.
Yeah, that was about Gary Caradori, his plane going down during the Franklin scandal, right? Having the pictures and the documents of all whom was involved in his plane crash and everything. He had Barr the fixer, right?
Yeah.
Actually, the video is longer than I thought it was. It's 9 minutes, but that's a good Q meme right there, Wheezy. It makes you feel good, right? Makes you feel
yeah.
good.
So if you can search We've Read the Documents, it's crazy. You got your YouTube channel back. So smash that MF subscribe button as I just did right there. That's awesome. Let people know how you got your YouTube channel. Dude, when I heard you tell the story on William Ramsey's, I lost it, bro. It was awesome. All
right.
Bro.
So I saw that I could appeal for my channel yet again, right? So most of the time, like most people, I write like these paragraph long, like diatribes about, I'll stick to the terms and services, and they were hitting me with warnings for violence, pretty much, which I'm a non-violent Christian. I find that weird, but it was me harassment and going after the finders, right? It was mainly primarily who was flagging my channel. And so, I'd wrote, just two, like one run-on sentence or two sentences. I wrote, I have read and agreed to the terms and services, and I'll rail on Donald John Trump and Elon Musk until they kill me. Now, it could have been a progressive person who saw that and went, yeah, okay. Or maybe it was an acceptable terms of service from Google and that I'm going to die in the near future. I don't know. But whatever, it is what it is. And it worked because, think about it. I didn't waste their time, right? I didn't waste, I just plainly stated, yeah, I read it. This is what I'm going to do.
That's insane, dude. I lost it, bro. You're like, as long as you went hard in the paint. Oh, I shouldn't say that anymore. You taught me what that was. Hard against Trump, you would get your channel back.
But I guess in closing about William Barr, he fought for all the pardons in the Iran-Contra affair. He wanted everybody pardoned, including Casper Weinberger. He also helped covered up the murders of Randy Weaver's wife in Ruby Ridge, right? He helped cover up that as well too, among other things. You can go watch the video. So Bill Barr is a fixer. It's exactly what he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right here. In 2017, Barr signed on to work with the law firm Kirkland and Ellis, which is an unusual connection to the Trump administration. The firm pays an estimated $8.4 million in annual rent to lease San Francisco skyscraper, which President Trump owns 30% stake. Now, you might ask, well, Kirkland and Ellis, why does that matter? Well, they were the law firm that represented Jeffrey Epstein. So before, he was Attorney General, he worked for Kirkland and Ellis, and then left Kirkland and Ellis.
Damn. That is insane. That is insane. Yeah, I mean, I think this is why I wanted to do the show. And I didn't ask you, John, do you still got time or do you need to run off?
I got a few minutes. Yes.
I apologize.
Not too much longer, brother. As much as
Yeah.
I'd love to stay, but I got to go out to eat dinner
John.
with.
Come on, John. I'm
My
just kidding.
my son's hungry. I need to go out with him.
I got you,
So,
bro.
and I'm hungry too as well.
I know. I'm just kidding with you, man. You've been awesome. I did want to, and I'll open up the StreamYard if anyone wants to call in.
Go ahead and open up now. I'll talk with anybody. Let's go. Let's do it. I want to take a
Who's
call
got questions? Who wants to join my man John Brisson real quick while we have him on? And the party will continue. I'm going to put it here on Rumble. But I wanted to remind people, some people are probably bothered, probably upset with some of the things we said about Trump. And some people, I'm sure not most people, but a handful of people will probably be saying, well, this is better than a Biden Kamala Harris. Here's my argument against that. My argument against it is, if there was a Kamala and Biden administration, the opposition to anything that they would be running with would have been strong. By putting someone like Trump, it is worse than a Kamala or Biden administration. And here's where this is my thoughts. I'd like to get your thoughts, Mr. Brisson. But it's worse because Trump can pretty much do whatever the hell he wants. Advocate cancer, quote unquote, preventative vaccines, mRNA vaccines.
Bring us
that if the Biden administration would have pushed, yeah, they would have, everyone like, screw you guys and your mRNA vaccines. But now that Trump is pushing it, you know what? Sign me up. I'll give it a shot. And that's where the real danger is. That's where I'm coming from. What are your thoughts, Sean?
Yes. And so I believe that a lot of conspiracy theorists are right wing now, quote unquote, and so their brains just shut off, just like shut off. So Trump is who instituted the pandemic and the first vaccine, and implemented more during his first administration. He's not a president of peace. They were still bombing Yemen, for example, and committing war crimes and atrocities in Yemen. And so and Trump was laying the groundwork for the technocracy. You had the Safe Homes Act that did not go through, but I believe that it will through the Bob and Susan Wright Foundation, that the government can listen into your house through your smart devices, and let's say you're having an argument with your significant other, they could come and take your guns. Okay. So, there's a lot of issues with the first Trump administration. I've talked about my issues with the first Trump administration. The second Trump administration makes the first Trump administration look like nothing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it does. And Trump's still not fooled. Look at Operation Stargate with Sam Altman, with Larry Ellison. You would talk with someone who looks younger but is old. Ellison is in his 80s. He sure doesn't look like it. Massimo Son, the Japanese benefactor for it. And just realize, with Musk and all, Starlink. I mean, we should do another show.
I would love that, bro.
Recently about Trump's CMP connections in the first Trump administration, because this is more about Epstein, and Trump's second administration, and why we have problems with Trump's second administration, that he will bring in the technocratic New World Order.
Let's do a show on the CNP, because to be honest with you, I didn't really know much about it, man, until you touched on it last time around. I've become good friends with my boy Twisted, and that's one of the things he's always bringing up with, you and your research on the CNP. For those that may not be familiar with CNP, what exactly is the CNP, real quick? In
the CNP is the right wing of the World Order's version of the Council on Foreign Relations. It was founded in 1981. Majority of the Republican presidents have either been members of the CNP or were given the approval of the CNP to become presidents, including Ronald Wilson Reagan, who was a member who spoke to the CNP many times during his presidency and afterwards. George H.W. Bush. George W. Bush, before he was elected president in 1999, spoke to the CNP. And Donald John Trump, who spoke to the CNP before he was elected president in 2016, spoke to them, addressing them in 2020. And the current president of the CNP, Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch, recently put out a tweet saying that the CNP met and they were emphatically 100% behind Donald Trump. And so, we'll talk about, the CNP and its origins, and it's the power players that helped found it, who was there at the initial meetings, and what the CNP is involved with. The CNP is involved with the Iran-Contra affair. The CNP was involved in the drug trafficking that was covered by Gary Webb in his book Dark Alliance, of the drug trafficking from Latin America into the ghettos of Los Angeles. The CNP was involved with Franklin scandal. Half of the members of the Project of New American Century were CNP members. The other half were roughly CFR members. Okay, the CNP was very much working with the Central Intelligence Agency to pay for and to help form Al Qaeda. This Council for National Policy was also involved with the Merrill Island sex trade scandal, slave trade scandal that most people are unaware of. And so, the CNP, controls a lot of the conservative and the alternative conservative media. Alex Jones, for example, is a member of the CNP. And I would say that the CNP, like if someone was a member and they left, it's like Fight Club, like you don't really ever leave, right? In one way or another, you don't ever really ever leave. Okay. And you don't talk about it either. Right. So we'll talk about it more, about how secretive they are. A lot of people don't understand how they've been steering national and foreign policy, at least on the conservative side, since its inception in 1981.
100%, man. Yeah, I want to be respectful of your time, my brother. And let's do. We'll get together and we'll figure out a date and time for that, man. I think it would be a great show.
Sooner rather than later, brother.
Hell yeah, let's do it, man. Dude, I truly value you as a friend. And as cheesy as it may have sounded, I truly felt you and I got closer this week, man. We had some great conversations. We went deep. Um, and you and I are very similar in many, many, many ways. And
Yes.
that could be the reason why we get along so good. Thank you so much for this, my man. And we're definitely going to be staying in touch, and let's figure out a good day to reunite and get the CMP show once again.
Anytime, brother.
Let people know where they can find you, and everyone, go to the link tree. I put your link tree in the description. Go to link tree. Follow him on Substack. If you feel he does good work and you feel like sending a tip for such a great episode, don't send it to me. Send it to John. Send him, a couple of bucks. If you feel great. John is one of the very few that I trust nowadays, and he does great work. So help a brother out. Send him a couple of bucks his way. But where would you like people to find you, my man? Uh-oh.
We see that, lose you?
You came back. You're there, bro.
Okay, I didn't know if I lost you there for a minute. My internet might be messing up.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, brother. You guys can find me. We read the documents on YouTube for as long as they allow me to stay up. We read the documents on Patreon, Substack, Odyssey. Substack gives you the most access to my content. You get my Spotify link, as well as you get my written work as well too. I published my Finders book on there. So far, what I've written, I'm hopefully going to finish it in the next few weeks. I also offer health coaching, fixyourgut.com. I've been a naturopathic author and health coach for greater than a decade. I use a coupon code John for half off coaching. I post a lot of health blogs as well too. On my Substack, I will say this, as Wheezy well knows, I am very vocal about my Christianity and my Christian beliefs. So if that triggers you or automatically turns you off, you probably don't want to follow my work. Just to put it out there, frankly put. So I will say that.
That's good, bro. And that's the thing. You are very devout. I am not, and we still get along super well. You know what I mean? So I think that's a testament to both of us that we can. I think even though we may look at that side of the issue on polar opposite of the ends, I think we both feel that we see the sincerity. I see the sincerity in you, and I believe, maybe I'm speaking for you. You see the sincerity in me.
No,
you know what I mean?
No, and like I've talked about, our personality types are the same, which is INTP. If anybody's out there is trying to psychographically analyze us, I just solved it for you. So we do look at the world very similar to each other, in the way and everything like that. So at first it made us skeptical of each other, but it's not so much now since we understand each other's perspectives, right, and stuff like that.
It's awesome, man. I truly treasure you, my man.
Same here.
Good dude, bro. Go ahead and take care of your children, man.
Will do. I'm going out to eat with my son. God bless everybody. Take care. Bye.
Enjoy, my man. Take it easy. Yes, sir. All right, that was my man, genuine good dude, Mr. John Brisson. He's off the air. I'm not just saying it, man. I truly treasure and value him. Legitimate good dude. Another guy that I truly treasure and value is Billy Ray Valentine, who got us together. There's not many people, unfortunately, that I can say that about. I'm not saying everyone that I know is a scummy person. I'm not saying that at all. But it's another level when you can really trust someone. And those are two people that I really trust. Real, genuine, good people. Billy Ray, Mr. John Brisson are two of the best folks out there for sure. And hit them up. Hit both of them up. That's what I try to do with my little show. I try to expose you guys to different voices, different opinions, different ways of looking at things. And I never try to guide or steer anyone. Maybe you listen to this, and even after listening to this, you still are going to wear your MAGA hat and still rock it. Maybe maybe some of this stuff resonated, but you said, you know what, this is better than the alternative. Everyone is entitled to the way they want to look at things. And if you find yourself in that situation where you listen to us and maybe you disagreed and you are still going to follow and listen to the shows, I want to say thank you to you, because a lot of people may have got triggered. I already saw one thumbs down on the Rumbles. There probably will be more thumbs down. So if you haven't smashed that motherfucking thumbs up button, please do, because I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more. This was definitely could have been a very triggering conversation. And the point wasn't to trigger anyone. The point was to speak the damn truth. Last week, I did a killer show with Miss Heidi Love on Mormonism. I said there, my intention wasn't to trigger any Mormons personally or poke fun of their beliefs, but it was to show a light on the real Joseph Smith. So today wasn't to trigger anyone, wasn't to point my finger and laugh and make fun of you. It was just to simply point out truths, some of which maybe you had heard of and maybe swept under the rug. But I don't know. The whole point of this show was to get people to snap out of it. We only have each other at this point in time. If you are new to the show, welcome to the show. And I was on Weaponized News. Sam Chaney did pop in. I don't know if he's still in here. Shout out to Sam Chaney. Thank you for inviting me on Weaponized News. It was a great time with those guys, Mr. Sam and Thomas, and real open-minded dudes. I was on there. I talked a little bit of my Lincoln assassination research, and then they started talking about the Trump assassination, and I'm not sure where Sam stood on, but Mr. Thomas, I think he believed it or took it, and I spoke my mind, as I do all the time. I said, I don't believe it. I don't buy it. And as I hinted at it today, the Trump assassination served to gin up support, not only amongst these technocrats that, like a Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, that stated Donald Trump was a badass after surviving, almost getting his head blown off. Complete horseshit. Completely fake. And yeah, let me let me see if I could pull up my I did a Donald Trump fake assassination Trump video, and let me see if I could pull it up. I was proud of it. I put it on Twitter hoping that it would go viral. Unfortunately, it did not do that, but let's play it real quick. It's only a minute long. Let me put the StreamYard as well. I want to do 3 hours. I'm sure you guys got something to say. Maybe I'll read the live chat. If you guys got questions there, we'll address them. And we had almost 100 people. Freaking awesome. After getting kicked off of Rockfin, to have almost 100 people live. We're going to build this up. I have a feeling. Unfortunately, I don't trust Rumble. I really don't. But I have a feeling that before I get kicked off of Rumble, so this is my plan. I'm gonna continue to put my shit up on here on Rumble. And I have no question that at some point in time, I'm going to get kicked off of Rumble. So if you enjoy my content, I am going to strongly suggest that you go to my Odyssey link. Follow me on Odyssey, please. I'm not saying you have to catch all the live streams on Odyssey. I'm not telling you you have to watch anything on my Odyssey. But I do have a couple playlists that I set up. If you are interested in the moon landings, I have a playlist full of moon landing videos. If you are interested into the Sean Atwood stuff, I have some Sean Atwood videos there. And if you are interested into what I specialize in, which is the Lincoln assassination, I have a Lincoln assassination playlist. So even if you never want to use Odyssey for anything, I would strongly, if you enjoy my content, I would strongly suggest you follow me there, because in the event you're like, whoa, I went to Rumble and Wheezy got taken down. I'm just laying it out there. At some point in time, Rumble's going to cancel me. I'm going to get kicked off. I already know it. But I'm not going to pussy shit around. I'm going to speak my goddamn mind until they kick me off. I don't give a fuck. But in the meantime, as long as Rumble has me here, I'm going to throw some motherfucking parties. And we're going to get these live streams to hundreds of people like in the YouTube days until they finally kick me off. And so that's why I'm telling you, if you enjoy my content, even if you're listening to me in the audio podcast, follow me on Odyssey, please. That's the one thing I will tell you if you really enjoy my content. I do have Jason. Jason, 1 second. Let me play this video and then I'm going to get you on. I do have Jason of the Knights of the Storm here. Let me play this video of the Trump assassination real quick.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir. Let me get my shoes, sir.
I'm talking over it so I don't get a copyright strike. Look at that hand. Look at that hand. No blood at all right there. So if anyone wants to say that the picture at the very end is doctored, there is no blood there. This is the original tape. There is zero blood. It's a bunch of horse shit. And how people buy this is beyond me.
It's all about timing. It's all about the timing. I think our timing's perfect. Do you even have a scar on your ear? You got anything on there?
I do.
What we say?
So, right over here.
He points at his ear on the Rogan podcast. He's clearly got jack shit on his ear. He clearly had jack shit the very next day after he allegedly got his head blown off and went golfing. He didn't even have his MyPillow on there. Yeah.
Put it down. My hand was covered with blood. Just absolutely blood all over the place.
There you go. There's a still of the hand, completely bloodless. So if he lied about this, why in the world should we trust any other bullshit this son of a bitch has to say?